Hey everybody, I just finished up a little 2-week seminar with Dr. Mark Tarpley on a Christian education and forming the child. He has several different seminars, but several friends and I and our priest took this particular class, and I thought it was really good, and there were some things I wanted to share with you that you may or you may not know. Keep in mind, I am not an expert in these things. I am simply relating to you what I heard from somebody who I consider to be an expert. So you may know more about this than I do, and that's totally fine. I am just telling you what I got out of this class. Forgive my lighting. I'm not a professional vlogger or whatever. I don't really, this isn't my favorite form of communication, but if we're going to use the internet, let's use it for that which is good. I'll start off, I guess, I know there's a prayer for starting off with teaching, but I don't know what it is. So I'll start off with the prayer that I know. O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere present and fillest all things, treasure of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us from all impurity and save our souls, O good one. Okay, so basically I'm going to be talking and showing you some screen sharing stuff. So you've probably heard me talk with Adrienne maybe about what is education, and Dr. Tarpley was talking a lot today in today's session about forming the child. And as I was prepping for St. Nectario's book reading next week, I was reading tonight to my kiddos the preface to that book, and it talks about forming the child. And so one thing that we need to keep in mind is what does education mean? It's forming a child. We are forming, we're helping to form their soul and their mind and their heart and their nous, which if you're not familiar with that terminology, it's an ancient church, I guess, philosophy where it talks about the nous as part of the soul. We're not going to get into that today because I'm not an expert in that either. And someone will correct me and tell me that I'm wrong about how I'm using the word. So go look it up. You can look up noetic prayer. All of that has to do with the nous. But essentially for right now, we could simply say the nous. When I refer to it, basically you can think of the child's soul, that part of us which is connected to God. Okay. Hopefully that was right enough. So we're forming a child, right? So there's so many important things about that. One of them, which I am deeply aware of, is that I am not formed. I am not perfectly formed. I am not completely, or if at all, virtuous. And so I'm treading with humility in front of my children and my students, saying, I don't have it all together. I'm not the best at this. I'm just trying to help. Okay, so the first thing that we talked about is, let me close that window, is, well, let's show this. Let me share screen here. Desktop. No, oh, I can choose. Okay, let's share that. Is that what we're sharing now? I'm not sure. You are screen sharing. Great. Is it showing me what I'm screen sharing? Okay, let's just hope this is correct. Okay, so let's talk about, before we talk about normative and analytical approach, let's talk about, your screen sharing is paused. Okay, let's talk about these questions. And I thought these were really good questions and things I had never even thought about before. So this is just a sample list of some maybe normal things that may happen in any given classroom. These are just some sample things. So the first one would be, a student is given a list of questions to answer before reading a chapter of a book. A child is asked to watch a video on working math problems and then complete similar problems. So here is the question. If you gave assignments such as each one of these, how would they form the child? So I'm not sure where to, there we go. So let's take the first one. A student is given a list of questions to answer before reading a chapter in a book. So what is that doing or teaching or forming inside the child? And one of the things that we talked about in the class is that the child might be looking for a right answer. Like there are right answers. So what about that? So what does that produce in the child? Maybe superficiality, maybe a sense of efficiency, maybe a sense of task orientation, maybe even eventually binary thinking, like there are right and wrong answers, or there are right and wrong people. So you see where we're going with this. The second one, a child is at, and I don't have all the answers to these, and we didn't have all the answers in class. It's just something to think about. The pedagogical methodology that we're using is forming. And it's going to go beyond the classroom or beyond your homeschool. It's going to go out with that child into the world. Now, you know, we trust in God. We're not responsible for everything, and we're doing the best we can here. But this is to give us, and it's not like you can never do these things. It's something to be thinking about. How do I want to form this child? In whatever way I participate in that. A child is asked to watch a video on working math problems and then complete similar problems on a worksheet. Well, I think we've all done that for homeschool. So, and I've got my notes here. Hopefully I can read them. So what kind of formation might that create in a child? Teaching is dispensing data, right? Like, that's what it means to be a teacher. I can learn everything I need to learn from a video, or from a video on YouTube, or a video on Facebook, or whatever, which of course is not true. It might produce a procedural child with a single pathway mentality. Or I think here, and I extrapolate a bit, so I think here, this trend towards teaching this way leads me to think about transhumanism and this melding of people and machines, and like they're equal. Machines don't have divine souls. They're not equal. So we can think about, how is that forming a child? After reading a chapter, a student is asked to journal about whatever he likes based on reading the chapter. Well, this one I could recognize right away. So for me, this produces a self-centered child, someone who thinks my opinion is very important, or is the most important opinion, or my opinion is authoritative. And it's not, of course, that our opinions are not important. Of course they are. But, you know, we talked about maybe a better journal assignment might be journal about courage, or, you know, a little tiny bit of direction here. Not so open-ended. Of course, we're not talking about diaries or, you know, your daily personal journal. That's obviously totally free thought. We're talking about assignments for class. So be mindful of that. Subjectivism was another thing that someone brought up. Directionless, without boundaries. So we're thinking about this formative. We're just starting to think in this way. The D, a student is involved in a lively, engaging discussion on a particular science topic. And I don't know about y'all, but this year we did physics in our homeschool co-op at church, and we had some really lively physics discussions. We had some mind-blowing moments. There was one moment when the guy was talking about how older people can't hear high-pitched sounds. And then he played one of the sounds in the video, and all the kids were like, yeah, we can hear that. Us old ladies in the class were like, can't hear it. So we had these engaging discussions. And then after that, you're asked to answer just a series of multiple choice questions. So what are we teaching there? Depth goes to shallowness, a frustrated child. We just had this great discussion. Is this how we're going to be? Like, is this what we have to regurgitate after that? These simple multiple choice questions? Can we talk more about that? Can we have an essay? Whatever. Just think about how this is forming the child. E, a student is given a rubric for a paper that he is to write on a recent book. The rubric includes point totals for heading, grammar, sentence structure, main idea, organization, and citations. Okay, so I don't know if you're homeschool mom that's been homeschooling for 20 years, you may or may not be familiar with the term rubric. If you're a school teacher, you certainly are. So basically, rubrics can be, I mean, this could be assigned at 20 points for this. That's not the point. The point is, what is the child thinking? I mean, do you see anything in here about thoughtfulness? Do you see anything in here about connection, integration, developing ideas? So one of the things that we said about this is that to get a grade or to be perceived in a certain way is a goal in life. Okay, so I thought that was really handy. I'm obviously not going to reproduce the entire class for y'all. I just thought there were two things I'd like to share, and this was one of them. Just as we are giving children assignments, to think about how that is forming them. I made a note. This is just my thoughts. None of these are forming virtue in a child necessarily. So we need to think about, well, what I think about what is virtue and how is virtue formed in a child. And so the answer for me is virtue is formed through a life of repentance. And the answer for me as an Orthodox Christian is, well, okay, what about, like, where do we get that? So if the answer for me is the liturgical life of the church, participating in doing your morning prayers, your evening prayers, the creed, going to confession, going to liturgy, taking communion, reading the lives of the saints. So there are these things that we participate in bodily, mentally, with our soul, with our whole human self, that help develop virtue in us. And certainly our education, our academics, we're all integrated. We're integrated humans. So this is all integrated in that. And what we can do in our school setting or our homeschool co-op or whatever can lead toward virtue. Okay, so how do I screen share this other page? So this next one was really exciting. If you are a seasoned educator and not just a homeschool mom like me, you probably were already familiar with this, but I wasn't, and I thought it was worth sharing because my mind was blown. So the question was to talk about the analytical versus the normative. Can I share? Oop. Okay, sorry, so new at this. Yeah, I'm gonna share that one now. Okay, so we are going to talk about this. So over here, well, let's start over here. We'll kind of cover up this blue area. Let's look at this little tan taupey area over here. So if you were going to teach the Roman Empire, this is mind mapping, which I also didn't know what it was. So this is just a way of organizing thoughts. Like, okay, so if I'm going to teach the Roman Empire, I might want to talk about art and architecture, Roman economic system, Roman emperors, and the expansion of the empire, how to expand it. And if I explode Roman emperors here, I might go into Nero, Trajan. Then off of Nero, I might look at dates, some facts about his life, how he was brutal towards Christians. Then off of that, I might start looking at how he crucified people. If I were looking at Trajan, I might be looking at these things over here. So the analytical approach is probably, if you were public schooled as I was, this is probably how you approach, and how many of us homeschoolers may have approached teaching any given subject. You start with a thing, like a fact. The Roman Empire was a thing. And then you go into other facts and more information. So as Adrienne talked about in our last video, this is the stocking shelves idea. Well, okay, we're going to stock your Roman Empire shelves, and here's what we're going to stock them with, all these facts. Okay, so that would be the analytical approach, which is probably what most of us got. Is there a time and a place for this? I guess so. Maybe, I don't know. I think the normative approach is better. This is the first time I had heard about it, so let's talk about it. So over here, we're actually not going to quite start with the Roman Empire. We're going to start off the semester or the lesson or whatever we're doing with a question. And the question might be, what is courage? Or it might be, what is virtue? Or it might be this particular question, what is progress? And we're going to have a discussion, which is how we started off our class with Dr. Tarpley. We started off our class, and by the way, his website is forgottenlighthouse.com. He has seminars for educators if you would like to sign up for them. He's much more knowledgeable, been doing this much longer, has a PhD, is a wonderful person, has read many more Lives of the Saints, much more spiritual reading than I have. So if you want to check him out, please do. So then we have this little graphic here. Okay, starting with what is progress. So we're asking the kids these questions like, well, what is progress? And this can be like your initial assignment for the semester could be a one-page paper. Tell me what you think progress is. And let's just talk about it. And then as we talk about it, we're going to get more into, for instance, I did this with my middle schoolers this last year. I did it backwards because I had never heard of this approach. So we read Tom Sawyer, and we read Gift of the Magi, and we read a bunch of poetry, and we looked at specific pieces of art. Van Gogh, by the way, has some wonderful biblical scenes that he's done. So we looked at specific pieces of art, and then I asked the question at the end of the semester. What we talked about with Dr. Tarpley is it would have been better to ask at the beginning of the semester. So my question was, for my class, what is selflessness? And we had a lot of discussion about that. Like, does selflessness have to include certain aspects or elements? If I have $4 billion and I give $100 to a homeless person, is that selfless? Is it the same sort of selflessness as the widows might? Are there other elements to selflessness? So we're having these conversations. So from here, you can see he has some ideas spinning off of this. The pursuit of power, is that going to be contained in the idea of progress? What about the pursuit of truth? Is that contained in the idea of progress? Technological advancement is probably how most of us think of progress when we just are thinking of it. From there, he goes on to say, okay, from that, we could talk about the technological advancements maybe of the Roman Empire. Then you're getting into the same things that you had over here, architecture. Oh, well, if he had exploded this, he probably would have talked about the Pantheon, aqueducts, all of that. He didn't explode architecture over here on the right. You can see pursuit of power. Then you have the Roman emperors. Then you have Trajan and Nero, which you also had over here. Over here, you have the pursuit of truth. What is contained in that? Creativity, beauty. Truth is a who, not a what. Quidus veritas. Wrong question. Right question. Who is truth? Okay, focus is in the heart of man, creation, fall, and recreation. The Polycarp text, which was actually a text that we were using for this class, the martyrdom of St. Polycarp. The incarnation is the central act in history, the virtue of courage and vice of cowardice, the struggle in man's heart for God and Satan. Okay, so let me stop screen sharing for a moment. Okay. So you can see that both of those approaches contained in your subject matter as you go through the semester. You can still talk about those emperors. You can still talk about aqueducts. You can still talk about all the things that, like, if we were going to put together a unit study on Rome, that we would think, well, I need to teach this and this and this and this. We think naturally because the way that we were taught is filling those shelves with knowledge or information. The normative approach is just different. It doesn't mean you don't get the information. It really begins with asking important questions, formative questions, questions that are helping form the soul. Normative, formative. So just wanted to share that with you. And I'm not going to develop it much further because I did teach the normative way this past year, but I did it backwards. And I can't say that I've really taught this way. I can't say that I am an expert in this at all. I mean, I do this with my own kids usually, but sometimes I think my questions, or I'm not asking questions enough. I'm talking at them instead of asking them questions. I need to get better at that. And that's something I'm working on. But I hope this is helpful if you are in a homeschool co-op, if you're teaching a class, if you're doing a classical school, if you're just a charter school, whatever, this may help you. I will say, I do think I have Norms and Nobility on my bookshelf, and I think I've had it on my bookshelf for like 20 years or something, and I haven't read it. It is on my list. After St. Nectarios, it's going to get in there because I do think that Norms and Nobility, David Hicks talks about these kind of things. And I'm pretty sure Charlotte Mason covers them in her work. I'm not nearly as well read as other people. Don't look to me as an example, please. Just bringing you what I feel like are good ideas that I am learning. Dr. Josh, he's not a doctor. Joshua Gibbs has a class coming up that it's a seminar, July 7th and 8th, that I have signed up for. He's also on Classical U. I really enjoy him. I started taking, he offered his teaching philosophy to high school class for free for a little while. I was taking that and planned to pay for it. And continue to take it. It's very good. Those are some resources for you. We have 2 classical education conferences going on right now in DFW, where I'm located. I'm not at those. But if you scoot over to the classical education Facebook page, Adrienne, who runs that page and goes to church with me and is a wonderful human being and much smarter and more well-read than I am, has uploaded some pictures from that, the conference that she's at now. I do have, like I said, a St. Nectarios book study coming up. That event is on Facebook. I'm going to try to do it via Zoom. I don't know if I have to have a special account. I'm going to figure that out this weekend because we're going to start that on Tuesday. So if you would like to join us for that, feel free. And now I'm going to figure out how to upload this. And hopefully this was helpful. I'm going to put it on our Classical Educators of North Texas page. If you liked it, if you know about this stuff and you have more to say about it because you've actually done it, please say something because I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you so much.